right, hello there, and welcome back to Scrapbook Your Legacy. Uh, this is my third take on this video today. I don't know what is happening with my phone, so here's hoping that it continues to record so that I can bring this video to you. All right, so this is my third time doing this. Today I am doing a really neat floral layout. So if you're a gardener and you like to show your flowers and have them in your scrapbook, this is, I think, a great layout. This is a different style layout for me. Look at these flowers. Aren't these beautiful? The orchid and this. Hibiscus flower. That's what that is. All right, so I have those and I have some other bright flowers over here. So I'm going to get these down, and then I was looking for papers to go with this as well. Look at that. That's the Japanese garden. Isn't that gorgeous? All right, so I'm going to bring in and I'll show you the sketch that I'm working off of, but I'm going to bring in my mats and show you what we're going to be doing today. So let me get this in here. And something that I demoed in one of the takes that I did before I found out that my camera wasn't working is I showed how to gut and create a frame style. And so what I did is I brought in, we have the cutter here, all right, and I was just showing how you can see here we have a 1-inch mark, right? This is a 2-inch blade housing, and this mark is at the 1 inch. So all I did is I brought in a piece of paper, and you just line it up at the 1-inch mark. I had already cut this, but this is, you line it up at the 1-inch mark, and then you just come in, and the top of your blades, the top of the blade housing is at the top of the paper, and then you have a perfect 1-inch border, and then you just go till you get to the bottom of the paper, and then you have that border, and then you just keep turning, lining it up with the 1-inch mark, and then going, whoops, sorry for that squeak, and then you just keep going. Okay, so that's how you gut. And then this, put that away. These are the papers that I gutted. All right, so this is the back, and I'm using the avocado green and the plum, and I wanted it to be a 12 by 24 layout because it's the garden. So the avocado green is 12 by 12. This is a 1/4 inch shorter, all right, smaller. So I cut a 1/4 inch off of one side and then a 1/2 inch off another side to get that 1/4 inch all the way around. Then the white paper is another 1/8 inch narrower, okay? And so I did an 1/8 and then a 1/4 from the top. So that's how I cut that, okay? So I'm going to bring in the photos and I'll get them laid out. Now, this is the sketch. I went on to Pinterest this time, and this is the sketch I found. Now, it didn't print the entire thing, but I thought that this was a fun layout. I am not matting my pictures like they're matted here, okay? Because I have this frame style layout, which is acting as my frame for the entire layout. And so I have white in between the photos to kind of bring some rest because the photos are busy. But anyway, I went through and looked at this, and I feel like this is a 7-inch by 2.5 inch. I think that this is probably 2.5 by 3.5. I did mine as a 5 by 5 here. I'm not sure if it is. And then this one here is a taller, almost like a rectangle. And then this 2.5 by 3.5 inch roughly, they have 2 of those, one here and one here, and then this larger rectangle piece. Unfortunately, you can't see it here, but this is the idea. And then they had other similar types of looks around it. So I thought that this would be a fun one to do. I will be using peekaboo pockets to fill it out. And so all I did is, and I had, don't be afraid to create a map for yourself, you know, to where photos are going to go when you're doing a more involved layout. But I wanted to do a grid to fit the maximum number of photos, but I didn't want it to just be a traditional grid. I wanted it to have interest by how we change up the size of the photos, okay? So these are me and my family out at the Denver Botanical Garden. But like I said, even though this is the Denver Botanical Garden, this can be your garden. Now, maybe your garden looks like this. Mine does not. But all I'm saying is that you could use these photos for that. And then I came in with color blocks, all right? Because I don't have photos for everything here, and they weren't going to all work with the orientation. So I'm coming in with some color blocks to fill in, because I also had to adjust my photos a little bit from what I thought they were in the original layout that I'm trying to follow. All right, so, all right, and then for this one, all right, I've got that up there, and flower. All right, there's my son. And, all right, so here's something. I'm going to show this after I get this done. All right, so this is going to be in here. And then the ducks are going to go here. So it's like a slide puzzle, really. And then I'm going to have this down here. And hopefully I don't have to trim it, but I'll have to adjust these a little bit. All right, and I brought this one down here. So I like that, how that looks. And then this is over here. That was a fun one with those flowers. Now, here's where I started, all right, because I thought these flowers are so pretty. So I had this, let me move this out of the way because that's going to go there. I had this here, okay, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, visually in person, it seemed to have your eye just go boom right here because it's so bright, right? I mean, they're gorgeous flowers and they definitely work with the greens and the plums. But do you see how, because it's such a bold photo, even though it's not the biggest photo, your eye just goes right there. And yes, I have a strong hibiscus flower here, but it's not yellow. It's just one of those colors. You just go right there. So I was sitting here with this and I'm like, I love that photo. I love how the flowers look, but it's too strong when the majority of mine is green, some lavender, the pinks, a little bit of red. So then I went back and I found this original photo, okay, which works great, but then I tweaked it a little bit. So I tweaked it and did this brighter one. I just didn't like how I edited it. I'm still learning how to edit photos. So then I went back to the original. All right, and now do you see the difference now with that photo here versus this? All right, so you see how your eye goes just directly there. And granted, this color gold looks great with these purples. You know, you got some of it here in the orchids, but it's so strong. And so I felt like this one just married the look. Yes, I still have the bright hibiscus over here, but the overall scheme is that works well with kind of how I'm doing the colors here. All right, so that's just one way to bring some unity to your photos, to your layout, so that the colors are cohesive. And granted, I mean, like when you look at this, all right, you've got bright yellow and purple, but do you see how you have flowers here that have that bright yellow, and then it's yellow and purple? You've got two colors going on here, and then a black mat with the green to tie it all together. So it's a complementary color scheme, purple and yellow. Okay, so trying to do greens and purples and some of the yellow, and so it's a little more, not analogous, but you know, just more complementary and easy on the eye, soothing, I guess, soothing layout. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get these photos put down on the paper as quickly as possible, and then we'll talk about embellishing when you have a really busy layout like this, which is why I went with more tonal photos so it wouldn't be too busy. All right, so I'm going to get these photos down and I will come back to you. All right, I'll be right back. All right, we are back and I'm just going to put some finishing touches here, and I might need to adjust a couple of the photos, but you can see that they are down, because I had the spacing for the most part worked out. But I can see that there might still be a couple that are crooked, and it just takes time to kind of work through it. But yeah, this was our day at the Denver Botanical Gardens. It was our second time to these gardens. And they are, let's see, I had this cut and it probably needs to come up a little bit. But they are absolutely beautiful. And the first time we went there, we went on a, on a sunny day. And so this day it was a little, the light was a little flatter because it was cloudy. And this is why we use repositionable. I always hear people saying that, but here we are. But anyway, there's going to be a slightly larger space there. I can probably shift this. I can probably shift this over. This is where you get to see what goes into just kind of laboring a little bit over it. Move this over just a little bit, or maybe I'll just leave that. All right, so we'll just move this up a little bit. But yeah, so these grids can be a little interesting to work around, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's better. And I'll probably need to trim this piece just a little bit. So we'll do that, and then we should be good. I think I'll just take about an 1/8 inch off. There we go. And that should help it be okay now. And that's what it is. You just kind of play around and work with it, see where we're at. Okay, so that's good. And I think most of that is pretty straight. All right, so that's the grid with the flowers. All right, and this was neat at the Denver Botanical Gardens. There was an event going on with art in the garden, so they had these frames in different places that framed out a beautiful landscape. And so I don't know if we're supposed to be behind the frame, but then it means you'd have to walk into the garden a little bit. So we just stood on the other side of the frame, but it was fun. All right, so what I'm going to be doing for peekaboo pockets is I have this one here, which is a dogwood flower, something similar to that in the Japanese garden there. And then this will flip up, and there's a bird, and then we have the duck, the mama duck with her babies. They were just walking all over the place, traveling along one of the little rivers. And then I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to have to flip this, but the idea is that this will be here over the center of this photo, and then you'll open it, and I'm going to have my journaling on here. Okay, so that's how that's going to be, but I'm going to do it over the center, so you'll see the top and the bottom of the photo. And then I think that will just look unique that way. All right, so that's how those two are going to go after this is in its page protector. The other thing I did is, because I still had some other photos, is that I will have a 6x12. And because I'm going to have this over here, at least right now, then this will probably need to be over here, which means it's backwards right now. But what I did is I brought in some more photos, and I cut, you know what, let me take it out because you can't really see it. All right, so I cut using this blade, the rhythm blade. This came out at Christmas. So this is one of the tools I use. I use this on our 12-inch trimmer. And so that's that rhythm blade. So I use that to cut all 4 sides of this, all right? I did gut this green paper, all right? And then the other tool I used was our 5-leaf punch, which I will link it below if it's still available. I don't know if it is. Just for embellishments in here. And so I just did them in these blank spaces because I'm not printing any more photos because I also have another layout of the botanical garden. So I just filled in here. You could also do flowers. Isn't that lily? Just absolutely stunning. And the bonsai trees at the botanical garden are incredible. And then there's this unique flower. All right, and then on this side, I cut down the 5-leaf punch. So it's just the top one and then one, the next two. And you can actually, for this punch, if you wanted to, you can cut off this and use this bottom piece for a little flower. All right. So you can do different things like that with that punch. So then I just added in the bug homes and some more flowers here. And then I overlaid one of the photos. So this photo here is this same photo here with me and my sons in it, but here it is without us in it. See how they created a landscape opportunity, like photo op in the garden? Isn't that incredible? All right, and then filled in with some more purple. So you can see how all this all works together. All right, but this is what will be up, and maybe I'll just have it over here. And then, you open it and you'll see all of this, okay? So, and then on this side also, because I had gutted that paper, same thing, that rhythm cutting blade, okay, on all 4 sides. All right, so that's what I did there. All right, so that's what I did there for that peekaboo pocket. And then you saw the other 2. All right, so the next tool I used was this Leafy Vine Border Maker cartridge, okay? Because I have these areas here where I didn't want to just leave them. So I cut the leafy vine to kind of go, I was like, do I go like that? Do I just stay, straight? In the end, I think I'm just going to keep it straight. So I cut it to just sit in here. And then I did letters. So instead of doing Denver Botanical Garden, I'm just going to do DBG. All right. And that will be how this will go, because I know that it's the Denver Botanical Garden. All right. So that's how these are going to lay in here. So we're going to get those put down. Now, if you have die cuts that you use, you can do die cut leaves. I played with this one in here as well, but I did not like how just that one 5-leaf piece was, but it works great filling in here, okay? So I like how that looks. It just brings a little more color and interest there. All right, so let me get my little cutting mat, or my little tape mat, and then for doing yes, this is how we want to, let's make sure we have it going how we want it to be. Yeah, we'll do it that way. It doesn't cut differently. It just kind of does what it does. All right, so we're going to use our repositionable on our mat that it doesn't stick to stuff. All right, and we're going to put this down here. And then, you can always add stickers and stuff like that, but I have so much going on in these photos, and I really want these photos to stand out without any added business going on here. So that's why I'm just going to keep it as is. No, not that. All right, let's get that off. We are going to need to have to cut a new one. All right, let me get some avocado paper, and because there's no rescuing that, and we will just cut a new one and go with that. So you just kind of pivot a little bit so that we don't ruin. And if you're not familiar with our border maker system, and maybe you are, this is the time to see it. I think I squished that too far up there. It has a magnet on it. All right, hang on a second. Slow down, Carrie. We do not have to rush, because then mistakes happen. All right, there we go. And this piece attaches right to that magnet. All right, so I'll just move this back a little bit. I'll zoom out so you can see it. All right, and then we just put the blade in the housing unit, okay? And then you just go along. There's teeth here that fit into indentations, and I'm sorry if it shakes. This kind of does its thing, but it'll be over in just a minute. All right, there we go. So I'll just take that out. I'll just set it over there for right now. Okay. So that is the Boilermaker cartridge system, which is an amazing, amazing tool because the cartridges don't cost much and they're small and they're great for these layouts. Let me get that off of there. Okay. So I just need to cut this again. And all I did is I just cut it right at this dividing area. And I used my little micro tip scissors and I just followed a line there, okay? And when you cut like that, like, you know, they call it fussy cutting, you turn the paper, not the scissors. That's how you do that. And I, by no means am I really great at fussy cutting. So let me just make sure I have this going how I want it to. Okay, so I like it like that. Got our repositionable, all right? So we don't make that mistake again. And it ran out. All right. And that's one thing that I do like about these is that you can replace it. So we've got our cartridge. So now I've got to order more because it's my last one. So we'll get that in here. It just goes right back in like that. And voila, we're back in action. Okay. Now we're going to lay this one down and I do want it right over at the edge. There we go. And then we'll come in with our letters and these will go like, that will be centered on that and that will be right above it and then right below it. So I think we want these to come up just a little bit. There we go. All right, so we're gonna get that done. And so this is just, you know, you pivot when things aren't quite going quite right and roll with it. I could use my tweezers for this, but you know, these letters are easy enough to handle. And I decided not to double back these letters, you know, I wasn't going to offset them. I just wanted to keep it super simple. You know, I've got the plum already that's in that frame. So that is that. And all right, so that is that layout. And I think it's a great way to document your garden. Or if you love to go to botanical gardens, you can document those. But I like how this turned out. And I like that I tried something different with this type of a grid. So here it is, all right? And I did do 2.5 by 7s, okay? You can see them there and there. So that is my interpretation of this sketch from Pinterest, and I will make sure that I have that documented right for the notes for the show. But anyway, that is that. Now, what I wanted to show you that was really fun is if, and this is if you're, you know, this is using Creative Memories tools, but if you're not a Creative Memories person and you ink, then you can do the inking. You've seen some of these in videos, but I wanted to show you this. All right, I decided to try something I heard about from Melissa Ullman. That's where I heard about it. And she talked about cutting paper to create a stencil, okay? So I cut this mountain border punch, all right? I had it laying around, hadn't been used yet. I was like, you know, I'm doing this layout with these large, oh, I've got to clean that up, with these large format photos. I love using these in my travel album, all right? So I thought, I'm just gonna try this. So I put this down on the paper, and let me zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about, all right? I laid it on the paper and I used our chocolate, our hot fudge, you know, our chocolate brown, you know, dark brown ink with an ink brush and just went over this punch like that to create a shadow. Like it's like a stencil, okay? And then I came in with Deeper in the Woods with these logs and laid them at the front of the mountains, and it's a moss covered log. You don't really see the log underneath, and so I thought it just looked like a neat little forest floor. And then I used dies from my stash to, I know it's glary, all right, but there's the pine trees. Those are from my stash, all right, and you can see how that's worked as a stencil, all right? So I've been hearing this out there, create stencils. So that's what I did and just played with it. So I made this double page layout doing that. So it's just a way to make our tools work for us. And, you know, I have to laugh because my friend was like, oh, you should make a stencil. And then I was like, eh. And then I saw what Melissa Ullman was doing. I was like, yeah, she's on to something, that friend of mine. So that is what I did. So she'll probably get a kick out of that too. But anyway, and then this was last week's with that fun border. But anyway, comment below if you like that grid and how that, you know, what you would use it for, if you like to garden. I'll bring it right back here for one last look. All right, and then I'm going to have the peekaboo pockets again on here. All right, and I showed you how those are going to go. This is going to be over here with this side up, and then that. All right, and I'll have one there, and these will go on top of my, I'll have to flip this because this originally was here, and then I moved stuff around, so it's going to be over here. And this is where my journaling will be. Whoops, you can't even see it because I zoomed in. All right, so that is where the journaling will be. Anyway, all right, well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you stopping by each week. I would love it if you would like and subscribe if you're enjoying my videos. That helps my channel to get populated, so I would really appreciate that. And I appreciate you for stopping by and watching. I love the comments. I always reply. So thank you, and have a wonderful weekend. I hope you get to scrapbook and enjoy that. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.